for sustainability began at the early age of 8. Yeah, wow, that's early. She went to St. Michael's College in Vermont and accepted a position as an AmeriCorps volunteer in Hawaii. That's exciting. Good for you.
It was tough.
Yeah, sounds like a rough one. So her first job there was in solar was at a Hawaiian company, Sunelectric.
Yes.
Fun. And so you've worked at a number of solar companies and ended up at Revision.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you guys are a locally owned company.
I am a resident of Newburyport, and I ended up in AmeriCorps. I graduated in a year where the job market said, you're probably going to move home, and I said, I cannot do that. So I was applying to Peace Corps, applying to AmeriCorps, landed a job working for the Hawaii Department of Ed, got sucked into Hawaii, and so solar was where the jobs were, where I could stay in Hawaii and make enough to live there. I'm originally from Arlington, and so came back here probably like 7 years ago now. So needless to say, I am drawn to the ocean, and I find myself here. But Revision is really unique, and for anybody that may have looked into solar at any point in time, there was a period 5 years ago where there was a lot of door knockers and a lot of canvassing and a lot of solar companies coming in from the West Coast. And when I was on the West Coast, it was fine to work for one of those companies. But when I came back to the East Coast, I started getting really frustrated with decisions that were being made from these California and Colorado companies, which had good intentions, but I just couldn't explain to them enough times that Hampton Beach is not Plum Island, is not Gloucester, you know, although they could all fit in California. So Revision Energy, we are, I think we're actually 250 plus employee owners at this point. We became 100% employee owned in 2017. So I had worked for Revision probably a year before we became employee owned. But I think it has done a lot with regard to our ability to attract and retain talent. I really went from thinking about this as a job, which I've been doing the job for 6 or 7 years already, but to thinking of it more as a career, mostly because of the individuals that I found myself surrounded by. And so part of that is that Revision is a certified B Corporation. So Patagonia is a B Corp, Ben & Jerry's is a B Corp. All of these companies that believe business should be used as a force for social good. That purpose and profit are not things that are mutually exclusive. So every 2 years, we go through a recertification process that holds us accountable to responsible decisions that we're making with regard to planet, profit, communities that we serve, even going down to the suppliers that we buy from. And with regard to the talent that we retain, I think that, you know, everybody that's working at Revision, we kind of believe in this higher purpose that if we can make some money and save you some money and do some good things for the environment, then that's a pretty solid gig. So our mission is to accelerate and lead the transition to a clean, renewable energy economy in northern New England. So like, why bother? And so to me, you know, when we're talking about fossil fuels are exactly that. They are fossils. They are ancient plants and animals that we're burning, and they're gonna run out. So what's really encouraging is that we now have the solutions that we need to transition away from these fossil fuels. And I'm a firm believer that when people know better, they do better. And so that's really our goal, is to start that education. So we're not just coming into a house and saying, hey, you know, slap solar up all over this, but we're really taking a whole home approach and trying to figure out, what's the root cause of the problem here? Why are your bills so high? Or why do you want to go solar? And potentially introducing other complementary technologies to solar. This is Mexico City now, and we don't want to live in a place that looks like this. If you're here, you don't want to live here. So this is just an image of cars on the road, and to drive home the point that although you cannot see all the emissions that these cars are giving off, you'd be feeling it if you were standing out there on the highway breathing it. So the other question, it's like the number one question, do we get enough sunshine in New England? So it may not be the French Riviera, but according to the worldwide map of global horizontal radiation, it's probably your first time seeing this, we're right in line with the French Riviera. So it's maybe not, like the weather-wise, the French Riviera, but we do get enough sun to do the job. So Germany also has some of the most solar in the world. And we have 33% more sunshine than Germany. So it's 100% there for the taking. So just to go over the quick basics here, and we'll start with solar, and I'll get into some of these other technologies. So we install solar panels on your roof, sun hits the panels, direct current energy, like what's in your car, which we can't use in a home. So in addition to the solar panels on your roof, you have an inverter installed. And why they don't call it a converter is beyond me, because that's what it's doing. It's just converting that direct current energy into alternating current, which is what we use for our lights and televisions and all that good stuff. So sun comes out, solar panels generate direct current energy. It's converted into alternating current, and then a lot of the time, you're not in the house to use the energy as it's being generated. So you earn a credit, and your excess energy goes back into the grid. So that come, the middle of winter, when we don't have that much sunshine, you use the energy that your solar generates in the winter, then you pull from your credits on the grid, and if you need anything else, then you can buy it from the electric company. So I think a lot of people, think like, I got a big tree, or my roof is too small. And it's not always about needing to be at 100% solar offset, but it's just taking a step in the right direction. Something is better than nothing. And the way that the incentives work in Massachusetts really kind of makes this a cakewalk. So in Massachusetts, we have some of the highest utility rates in the country, but we also have some of the best programs in terms of renewable energy goals. So the state says to the electric companies, you guys got to produce X amount of clean power. X amount of your power has to come from solar. If you don't, we, the state, are going to fine you, the electric companies, which they're not thrilled about, as you can imagine. So what the state says is, okay, well, what we'll let you do is you can purchase the clean power that other people produce in order to hit your clean energy goals. So I, as a homeowner, have solar panels on my roof. I use all the power my panels create. And then hypothetically, electric company comes, knocks at my door and says, hey, we see that you're making X amount of power. We want to pay you for that so we can take credit for that production, because then they don't get fined by the state. So it's this like sweet little love triangle. So sometimes what happens is, even if you don't have enough panels on your roof to offset what you're using, you're then getting paid by the state purely because you're making clean energy. So in a lot of circumstances, that extra money that you're getting can actually pay your leftover electric bill if you have one. And so this is where Revision, you know, in addition to being an employee-owned company and being a certified B Corp, we really set ourselves apart because we're looking at the whole home. So our idea is that you have solar panels on your roof, and then maybe you install some of these other complementary technologies like an air source heat pump that do electric heating and cooling. They also make those for water now, where a water tank can be a heat pump. We sell backup batteries and EV charging stations. We just got this really cool contract with Brooklyn Solar Canopies. If anybody has driven down Route 1 lately, we just did a bunch of, not these particular residential ones, but on the commercial level, a bunch of carports over there that have EV charging stations that are being installed at Hillside Living, which is, you know, like just pretty much what we would how we would love everybody to live. So this is kind of our idea of how things are possible. And so what I do when I go to somebody's house is sit down with them and figure out, you know, okay, what are your goals here, and what can we do now? Where are the finances at, and what's your end goal, and how do we put together a plan to take you there, however much or little you want to do. So this is an air source heat pump. The thing on the left that looks like a big box fan, basically, is the outdoor unit. And then inside is this, looks like a white bar. It's about 3 feet long. You see them a lot in Europe, but you also are starting to see them more and more in commercial buildings and in hospitals. And they're becoming really popular for people to use as a supplemental heating source for folks that are on oil. In new construction, if somebody puts on addition, you know, they don't have to extend all their infrastructure out. A lot of folks are putting these in their additions. And these ones are newer. They're cold climate heat pumps. So they can produce heat down to minus 13 degrees. So that outdoor unit pulls the warmth from the ambient air in through the box fan looking thing, and then it essentially pushes that warm air into the house through the indoor unit, which is, in these pictures, it's mounted on a wall, but we also have floor units. And you've never heard somebody gush so much about a heating system as with these heat pumps. It's pretty hilarious, actually. So same deal here. So this is a heat pump hot water tank. So in this situation, the thing that looked like the box fan is actually the vent on top of the tank, and the bottom is a closed loop system that heats your water. And what's really nice about these is that it pulls the warm air from inside of your basement to heat the tank, and as a byproduct of that, you get a little dehumidification in the basement. And before I go to the next slide, if you haven't, definitely call to have a mass save audit, because both of these pieces of electronics technology qualify for the mass save heat loan. And the heat loan is up to 25 grand, no interest for 7 years, which is just about as close to free money as we're ever gonna get. So solar electric vehicle charging. We're driving on sunshine. So if you buy an electric car and you have solar panels on your roof, now you essentially have a gas tank on your roof. So a lot of these technologies that are super efficient electric, if you have solar panels, their operating cost is negated because you are producing the energy that you need to continue to run these systems. And last but not least, backup power. So because you are connected to the grid when you have solar, we have that really awesome concept of net metering where you earn those credits for overproduction. But what that also means is that if the grid goes down, you do lose power. So now what's coming into the market are battery backup systems. So Tesla has their Powerwall, and then we also sell a Pica system, and this is a company out of Maine. They're actually manufactured in Billerica. The guts of these are both the same. They're Panasonic. The one major difference is that the Tesla Powerwalls, those are AC coupled, versus the Pica systems, which are those are a DC coupled battery system. And all that really means to you is that if you want a Pica battery, you need to have a Pica inverter. So that would be something, that we want to look at, like right when we start looking at solar, versus the Powerwall, which, because it's an AC coupled system, can really be added at any time with, if you already have solar panels, that's a pretty easy plug and play. And that's all we got. Anybody have questions?
Yeah, I actually have two questions.
Yeah.
One is, what do you tell homeowners who have a lot of trees around their house and have good orientation perhaps for solar, but too many trees? Is it worthwhile from an overall carbon saving point of view to cut down trees, which also provide some shade and heat loss?
Yeah, so it's always something, that we look at, and, I by no means want to be like the Lorax, be like, cut all your trees, because you're right, they do help keep the house cool. I do think there's a happy medium between the two. So we go out to plenty of sites where we also have this technology called Aurora, where we can look at a site that may have some shading. So it's like satellite imagery with some heat mapping on top of it. And what we can do there is even play around to show you, if you were to cut this tree, then you're going to increase your solar production by X amount, so that you can, we can get some real numbers there in terms of the carbon that it's actually going to offset beyond, what it's giving you for cooling. The solar will offset more carbon than, your dozen maple trees, let's say, in a year. But I do think there's a happy medium between, we don't want to totally, turn your land into a field, instead of having these nice trees there, but there can typically be a happy medium in between. Let's keep these trees, let's cut these trees to increase the solar production. But if you call our office, that's something that we can look into for you.
I could run to the next session.
Yeah.
The plenary is starting now, so thank you very much.
Yeah,
But if you want
absolutely.
to ask more
Yeah.
questions, go ahead. Thank you so much. And you can just leave it up all
Okay.
when I get back.
Great.
Thank you.
I want to keep you back.
Yeah.
One more question. So Massachusetts has net metering caps, and I know that a while ago, a couple
Yes.
years ago, those caps were met in National Grid territory. Like, does that impact your company?
On the commercial scale, like big commercial, it's getting tight. But for residential,
Not for residential.
yeah, we can.
'Cause I think there's an exemption for smaller residential.
Exactly.
systems.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You got it.
All right, great. All
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
thank you.
I just had a question. When
Yeah.
you put solar on the roof, how does it affect your shingles and everything?
So we are going to look to see how old are these shingles, before we put the panels on. So if your shingles are 1 to 10 years old, you're probably fine, because it's typically, a 20 to 30-year shingle. If your shingles are, like 15, 20 years old, then we're probably going to have a conversation with you that says you might want to consider re-roofing before we put solar panels on here. All of our workmanship is warranted for 10 years. So if we think by touching those shingles, they could get brittle and cracked and, has roof leak potential, we might even pull back on the project and tell you we want to wait until you get a new roof. So that's definitely part of that initial process where we look to say, what are we dealing with here?
And how long do solar panels last?
The panels themselves are warranted for 25 years. They'll keep kicking long after that. The ones, the Beverly High School's panels are a pilot project from the Carter administration. So those are, we're building systems that could have the capacity to last 40 years.
And then when they're done, they're hazardous waste?
When they're done, there's actually working on like a recycling process for them. I'm not totally clear as to what everything is, but I do know that in some situations, they'll like strip the steel away from the cells themselves to recycle that. There's a bunch of articles that they've come out with recently, you know, about, okay, now that we're getting to the point of the original panels needing to be recycled, what's our process gonna be for that? Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, of course.